I'm Dr. Brinen. Welcome to another Clinical Bite. Today we're going to focus in on a nice, simple intervention for families aimed at increasing the predictability of communication amongst individuals and their family members. It's called the Family Huddle. It's actually an intervention that I learned back when I was doing couples therapy work. So today we're going to focus in on this one, the Family Huddle. So families, and we're talking about families in a really broad-based approach, right? So families can be a mother and a father and an individual. It could be neighbors. It could be any of the people who provide you that support and care for you and are there for you sort of through thick and thin. So we're really talking about families in that broad sense of describing families. But families are a powerful ally when we're talking about recovery. Families are wonderful in providing support, help you through the difficult times, empathize through the scary moments, and really validate those fears that you might be having as you're going through life. They provide activation. They really help individuals to get going, opportunity for activity, drawing people in, doing those things together. Things can sometimes be much more fun with family members because there's so much meaning involved in it. But when we're active, we're less likely to be worrying. We have more pressure toward sleep. We have less time for our voices. We also have more energy available to us, counteracting some of those problems with motivation and problems with connection. Families are also wonderful in practicing skills. Who doesn't love practicing something new with someone? You know, many times it's fun to learn something together. So if I'm working on increasing my use of mindfulness, it's really much more, it can be a lot of fun to do that with my mom or my dad or my brother or my sister. If I'm trying to do deep breathing or trying to get walking or a get up and go routine, it's nice to do that with somebody, right? We'll sort of sit down and set a time together to do those activities together. Finally, families allow us to increase the depth of the learning. As I'm learning about my capability, the value of reconsidering whether the voices are credible, even the value of kind of getting active early on, as I'm learning all of those pieces, they're so much more meaningful in the context of this nice, rich family. So again, families can be a really powerful ally in recovery. The flip side of that is because they're so meaningful to us, families can also provide a big source of feelings of rejection. They can really be frustrating. They can feel, at times, they can feel overwhelming to the individuals and almost controlling to the individuals. Also, the families can feel really anxious and scared and out of the loop and like they have no control over what's going on for this individual who they care for so deeply. So some of the problems that start to come up is really a lack of communication. The individual wants independence. So that individual might pull back. They might not want to give a lot of information, might not want to answer a lot of questions. So as a result, families might become a lot more anxious. Families have been around for this journey of recovery oftentimes way before the providers are. Like we as providers may have shown up to this journey halfway through, but families have been there from the very beginning. So they might be really anxious and want information. They want to check in on it. Well, out of that anxiety and that message that they're getting that the individual wants independence and not to give information, families fall into this trap sometimes where they'll start on a nice, easy conversation about maybe a movie or what we want to get for dinner or what we're going to do for the weekend. And then they start slipping in these questions about mental health or treatment or any of those other pieces. And so the individual starts to retreat back more from that feeling of being barraged. They retreat back more. They start playing a really, really strong defense against that information, which makes families feel much, much more anxious. Individuals start mistrusting anytime family members just talk with them, and family members figure they need to get that information whenever they feel like the opportunity arises. So the individual feels under attack, the family feels really anxious and locked out of any conversation. So no one is happy. Everybody's either anxious or feeling under assault, and so ultimately communication really starts to falter. So when we're talking about the strategy for the family huddle, it's really the plan is to increase the predictability of communication. For families, it really provides an opportunity to know that once a week, they're going to get together with the individual and they can ask any questions that they have. They can hear what the individual's been up to and what they're doing. We can work out any opportunities for concerns. For the individual, it reduces the defensiveness, because for the remainder of the week, when mom or dad or an aunt or an uncle starts asking about where they've gone hiking recently, the individual can start to trust that it's really just a conversation about hiking. When they ask about movies, it's just a conversation about movies. They don't have to be on guard that they're going to get a question about treatment or mental illness sprung upon them. And so as a result, everybody starts to feel much more calm, and they know there's a time during the week when we can ask all of our questions. It also defines the amount of time for the interaction. So instead of it feeling like, okay, is it a 3-hour conversation, a 3-minute conversation, the individual knows that it's very much maybe a 30-minute conversation. We know what the structure of it's going to be. We're going to have a sheet that we're going to walk through each of the questions and answer them along the way. The lesson for the family is that there's a predictable way and a predictable time, and that they can trust that they'll get their information, and that they don't need to spring it in all around. The individual learns that the family can be a wonderful source of support, but also can be somebody that they can engage in freely. And most importantly, that the family and the individual can work together well. So the basic format for the huddle, and again, just like any other intervention, we want to make it much more tailored to the individual and the family. One, we're going to set a meeting time, right? If we don't set a meeting time, it's probably not going to happen. At first, this huddle is probably not going to be something that anybody's looking forward to. So we're going to set the meeting time. Maybe it's Sunday afternoon, maybe it's Thursday evening, but set a time when everybody can show up, everybody can be focused, and people are in a good headspace to have a good conversation. The content. The individual will start, and they might talk about what they've accomplished for the week. Maybe they applied for a job, maybe they worked on this new skill that they've been working on in therapy, maybe they contacted some people, maybe they had some good meetings. So they're going to talk about what they've accomplished. And then they'll talk about what have they not been able to accomplish, and even maybe why they weren't able to accomplish it, areas that they might need help in. The families then are going to talk about what they've noticed going well, really trying to focus in on where have the successes happened during the week. Then they can start looking at the areas of concern, right? Or areas that they notice that they could have improvement. And so really focusing on that. We really want to get into the habit of giving equal stressors to both sides of it. Next, the individual can present any concerns that he, she, or they have. The family can present any concerns that they have. And we can problem solve those concerns in that moment. And then finally, we can talk about any upcoming events, right? So maybe, mom and dad are going to be away on Thursday night, so the individual's on their own for dinner. Or maybe somebody needs the car on a certain day, so we're not going to have access to the car on that day. But really talking about stuff that's coming up, good, bad, just that way everybody's on the same page. If we're meeting, why not get everything on track? Some people even set up like whose nights are it for dinner, chores, any of those things. Again, we're going to want to adjust the format for each of the families. So if some families want to know how are the medicines working and the individual is okay with that, you can put that in there. Again, make sure that we're leading with what's working well, and then we can focus in on the areas for improvement. So that way we're really looking toward recovery, not looking toward the problems. A couple of nice ground rules we should always set up, but again, families should talk about the ground rules that they want. Phones away, that's really important. We should be really focused, 30 minutes, we're going to sit down, we're going to get this thing done. 2, no substances. People shouldn't be showing up to the meeting either having drank alcohol, maybe used cannabis or any other substances, right? We should come in clear-minded so it's easy to focus. Finally, everyone should check in on their emotions, right? If I'm really, really upset, I might talk with everybody saying, I'm not in a good space today, but I want to have the meeting. Or saying, I'm not in a really good space today, can we postpone the meeting to another time? things like that. Another good rule to always hold on to is no cussing. Lots of families are comfortable with cussing. Some families are not comfortable with cussing, but in these meetings, it's really good to keep it to a minimum because that can just really amp up anger and frustration. So that's the basic format of the family huddle. That being said, if we're meeting every Sunday, sometimes stuff comes up that really can't wait till the next Sunday, right? So Tuesday, aunt or uncle or grandma gets a phone call and they really need to talk to the individual. We want to hold to that same principle. We're not going to sneak it in and check in. Hey, how was your day? Did you see this new episode of the TV show we watch? What we really want to do is just be really transparent with the individual. Say, hey, I need to have a conversation. It's not a fun conversation. It's a huddle conversation. Clearly label it. Explain the reason. Hey, I got this phone call from the doctor and I needed to talk to you about it up front, and then keep it efficient. If it can be held over till the huddle, say, let's finish this up at the huddle. If it's something that needs to happen right away, like for example, the doctor said, you missed your blood draw, we need to go get a blood draw. Say, hey, let's figure out how to get you your blood draw tomorrow or the day after, and then everything else is sort of put off. Problem solving for the future, that all can happen during the actual huddle. But between huddle emergencies, those are things that we're going to address really efficiently, really well, and bringing everybody together. So let's think. Sometimes there's some little problems we can solve. One, some families, especially early on in using the huddle, once a week feels way too infrequent, right? How can we wait a whole week to ask those questions? What if something happens between? And so for those families, I think we can say, let's start with, twice a week, 3 times a week tops, and then we can titrate out. So for maybe 2 weeks, we do twice a week. For the next 2 weeks, we check out once a week and see if that's enough. So that's just a nice way to help people feel comfortable and confident. 2, timing can be hard. We're all busy. We all have things going on in our lives. So it can be really helpful for the individuals to set up that timing, try to get the most number of people available who should be involved in the huddle. For people who have different shifts that they're working, we may say a huddle on Sunday, set our next huddle. Well, the next huddle is going to have to be on Friday because that's when we can all come together. So we can be flexible in it, and it doesn't mean people don't care. It just means that, life happens while we're working toward recovery. Sometimes we have really high emotions, right? A lot of people are really scared or really anxious. So having conversations about how do we come together, even starting with something like a mindfulness, people who are really focused on spirituality, a prayer together, deep breathing, looking at skills to reduce the emotionality so that way we have a constructive conversation. Finally, many people doubt that this is going to work. And so as a provider, I often say, well, let's test it out. Let's try it out this week, see if it works, and let's try it out the next week, and then we'll see. Sometimes it involves just tweaking what we're doing. Sometimes it involves saying this isn't really helpful for us, but we can oftentimes figure out if it works much better. It probably is going to work better than trying to spring stuff on the individual who we care for. So that's the family huddle in a nutshell. I hope you can try it out. And then let me know. Let me know if it works. And again, I will see you for the next Clinical Bites. Have a good day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.